Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Charlotte Mason Show. I'm your host, Julie Ross, and I'm here today with Brianna Goss of Solfa. And if you are like me and had never heard of Solfa before Charlotte Mason, or still have really not very much understanding of it, I think you'll appreciate today's episode. So thank you, Brianna, for being willing to come on and talk to us about this.
I'm excited to talk about it.
I know, and you're so knowledgeable, so you're such the perfect person to have on. Can you just give us a little introduction to who you are and
Sure.
let's start with who you are and your homeschool journey, and then we can talk about some of your musical background and stuff.
Sure. In my homeschool journey, I have a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old. They're both considered Form 2, but my 10-year-old I still treat pretty much like a Form 1 student. She's still developing in her reading skills and things like that. So we've been homeschooling the whole time. And my mom actually had the pink volumes when she homeschooled me. So I'm a second generation homeschooler. And she bought the books, the Charlotte Mason volumes, through a catalog. I think it was, she said, the Mary Pride catalog.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. So
myself here, but yes.
Yeah. So she didn't have the pleasure of having the internet when we were homeschooling. Yeah. So the support for Charlotte Mason wasn't as easily accessible as it is today. So I'm glad that I homeschool now and not
or even just even just the community, right? Finding other people who are like, and you're doing what?
Exactly.
So did she just have to kind of, based on her understanding of reading through the volumes, kind of piece things together then all on her own?
She did. I would say that she took some of the big ideas from Charlotte Mason and implemented that in our homeschool as far as nature study, outdoor all the time, good books, but we did have the traditional, like we did a Becca and Alpha Omega.
There wasn't a whole lot of places. Yes.
Yeah.
And so is it so awesome just to be able to like call her and ask her questions and stuff?
Oh, for sure. It is. And going through all of her stuff. So when she sold her house, I went through all of our old homeschool things, like papers that I had written in 7th grade and stuff like that. So some of that stuff, though, I mean, homeschool moms don't hold on to all of your stuff for forever, because once you do have to go through your parents' things, it's just more than you would need to, I guess. So
yeah, but some of it is so sweet. Like actually my two girls that were home for break for college, I told them, I'm like, okay, I moved all this stuff here, but it's time we're going to condense. You get one big bin.
Yeah.
Decide what you want to keep, and then the rest.
That's my plan too. I'm going to have one bin for my kids. Yeah.
And I mean, we had different ones throughout the years, but then it kind of, they had several boxes by the time they graduated high school. And so but it was so sweet just to read through some of their things that they wrote when they were little and they wanted to be. And, that's why I love doing like the weekly narration notebook thing that we do, is just, you see their thinking and their drawings and just what they think is important and stuff like that. So it's precious to hang on to that. Well, that is really cool that you have had that experience. I didn't know that. Yeah. So tell us a little bit kind of about your music background and what led you to do what you're doing now.
Well, yeah, it kind of moves into that really well with talking about me homeschooling. I was able to really focus on my passions, which were music. So I practiced piano for hours.
That's awesome.
I participated in several like piano competition type of things. And so when it was time for college, I knew that I wanted to major in music, and I had the music to perform at the, what do we call it? Like entrance exam type of things, auditions.
Yeah.
So that was my college experience, was majoring in music education. And I loved all of our music history classes. That was probably my favorite. And then using solfege within a secondary education, you had the sight singing and ear training classes for several years. And I think that helped me fall in love with solfa. I didn't really experience it much as a homeschooler growing up.
Right.
We were in children's choirs, but they didn't do solfege. And then when I was in college, I was also a student conductor of the university's children's chorale, and we use Solfa for that. So that's my background. And then teaching in the public schools for 10 years, I also used solfege in my choirs and in my music classes.
Okay, so for like the non-musical people, what is solfege?
So solfege is, I think they're all interchangeable. Solfa is probably a more outdated term. If you were to talk to a music teacher nowadays, they would use the word solfege.
Okay.
But Solfa was the term that was used as the title of the book written by the Kerwins, which is what Charlotte Mason was familiar with. Okay. So if you look at any Charlotte Mason things, it'll say Solfa.
Okay. Okay.
Just for that.
Okay. So can you explain a little bit about what they are though?
Yeah. So they are it's a system of singing and music theory. Instead of just naming a note on a staff like, oh, that's an A, that's a C, they have a system of tonality, which is the word for when you're listening to a song. And this is, I like to explain to my students, whenever we finish a song, we have that home tone. We have that note that's like, if the song did not finish on this note, it would not sound finished. And so that home tone is do, and we go up from there. If you watch The Sound of Music, you know, from do, a deer, a female deer. So, and that's usually the introduction. Right. Whenever someone's talking about what is solfege, we can point back to that movie. Thank you so much, Rodgers and Hammerstein, for writing The Sound of Music, so we can have that knowledge of what solfa is. But the Kerwins, who wrote the tonic solfa book that Charlotte Mason was familiar with, they used the hand signs that were created by Sarah Glover even earlier. So I have a history of solfa on my website that you can kind of trace back all the way to the Middle Ages with Guido d'Arezzo, who was a monk that developed the system. So it's a very old system of learning music. And yeah, so that's what it is.
If someone went today, right, joined, like you were saying, like a children's chorale or took music lessons, is it something that's commonly taught?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's definitely. Yeah. Maybe not in, maybe some church choirs probably don't really use it, but in the academic world, yes.
Okay. Okay. So why did Charlotte Mason include that in her programs?
I believe that it is because of the principles of music. Just like she was so passionate about education is a method, not a system. Education is based on principles, not this cut and dry, do this. And I believe that for music, we have that same idea. If you can learn the principles of music, and those principles being rhythm, melody, and maybe even tonality or beauty, those principles will take you far in your music education. So by learning a solfa system, we are addressing both of those rhythm and melody principles of learning how to look at music and being able to find the melody, the melodic line.
Okay.
And it trains the ear to be able to hear.
And I think that, yeah, I think that fits really well kind of in with her picture study or nature study, right? You're training your eye to observe and to notice, by training your ear to, you notice those things in the music that you're listening to. If you didn't have that training, you're just like, oh, it sounds like, it sounds the same.
Right. Yeah. And, I've got a story about that. I've led a co-op for years. And one of the moms said to me, how do you hear that? And I thought, how do you not hear it? We were listening to, I think it was a string quartet. And I was telling the students, hey, I really want you to pay attention and listen for when you hear each of the strings enter to where there's just one string player and then two and then three and then four. And that was a concept that she had never thought of and couldn't pick out and hear.
It makes you appreciate it that much more, right? When you know what you're listening for and what you're appreciating. And now, what would you say to the parent who's like, okay, my kid, we're not in a choir, we're not going to learn any instruments, why should I care about this?
You don't know if your child might develop an interest and a passion in it. I don't like math, but I'm not going to keep math for my kids because I don't. And when my kids get into higher level, if they're gifted in that, I will look for other resources if I can't do it myself.
Right.
And that's what I wanted Solfa to be. I'm not expecting parents to be able to know what I know because I have years and years of training and education and experience of doing it, but I can offer this to parents so that they can try it.
Yeah.
There's no Charlotte Mason police if you don't do Solfa. No one's gonna come after you. But hey, if there's something accessible, if there's something that's easily added to your morning time, why not try it? I try to keep all of my videos under 10 minutes. So it's easy to watch and participate with.
And I think that's the beauty of the Charlotte Mason Feast, right? Is the fact that you are offering this, wide and generous education. How big is the room that their feet are put in? And you don't know what your child will latch onto or love or passion. So you're giving them all these different options, right? And giving them that love and appreciation for music through singing it. And I agree with you. I think in the younger grades, please correct me if I'm wrong, it was what, twice a week?
Yeah, there's a post I have as well we can put in the show notes of what a music lesson would have looked like.
Oh, perfect.
And
I'm gonna ask you that question.
Yeah, and it's not 30 minutes of Solfa.
Okay.
So you don't have to think, oh my gosh, I can't do this for a whole 30 minutes. You can do it for 10 minutes once a week.
Yes. I love that, right? And and I just think of it as like these little grains of sand, right? These little ideas that we're putting into our children that who knows what fruit will come out of them or what connections will make between, this composer and that thing that they're learning about somewhere else.
Exactly. Yes.
So if you don't mind, would you kind of walk us through a little bit? Like if I was in morning time, wanted to add on Solfa.
Yeah.
What would we do?
So what I would suggest is going through the progression on the Solfa website. I have 3 units and I'd like to make more, but honestly, I feel like if you can do these 3 units that I have on the website, you're set. You can pursue it further with private music lessons. But if you are able to sight sing some of the simple melodies, listen to hear and be able to tell back what some of those melodies are in those intervals. So the musical word interval is the space between 2 notes. And that's what the whole tonic, Solfa, Kadai, all music educators around the country that are teaching in the schools, they start on this sequential understanding. We're not going to ask you to be able to tell the solfege of a whole song,
Right.
But could you pick out any time that you hear in the melody it goes and know that interval, the space between those 2 notes, is so me, and then you can go from there. So there's like little things, and a music teacher would be able to find that in a folk song or a hymn and be able to lead that. And that's what I do with my co-ops. I don't do that with the Solfa program. It's more about just interval training. But if you have a local music teacher that can maybe get a group of homeschoolers together and take it even further for those music lessons, and that's great. If you can't, just do the activities on my website. I've got games and all sorts of things. So I have these, and this is going to be video. We'll have to link it in the audio podcast, but I have little booklets that you can print off for free. So this is what I did with my printer. You'll have to, print it for yourself. I don't offer booklets to mail out, but each unit, so this is unit 1, which has 7 lessons. Unit 2 has 7 lessons, and unit 3 has 7 lessons. So I don't suggest going through them like once a week and just forgetting about them. I'd say even reviewing and understanding what some of those principles are as you go through will be helpful.
Okay, so one unit, would that take a year?
I'd say a year.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, I would. With the resources, there's flashcards, so you could watch the video
Mhm.
with your children and then use those principles that were taught, those skills that were taught in that lesson for several weeks without a video. You know
Okay.
what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
could look at inside here, there's places where you can see the words that, or the letters that stand for so and me, and
Mm.
just practice singing those
Yeah.
until there's accuracy. And I mean, if your kids are really quick on picking that up and have great accuracy and move at a faster pace, you could do that.
So Charlotte Mason started Solfa Form 1. Did that go all
Yes,
the way
Form 1,
through?
not year 1. I think
Yeah.
at the very beginning they did just singing games,
Okay.
but yeah,
Yeah.
maybe
Like,
when they're 7 or 8.
yeah. Okay. Like year 2. Now, did they do that all the way through, or like you were saying, at some point that's going to transfer over to actual formal music lessons?
Yeah, the tonic Solfa method that the Kerwins wrote, it did go through. I mean, like the last chapter would have been things that I would not have learned in high school. It's
Oh,
more
wow.
collegiate level.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
but as far as like nowadays in
Yeah.
music education, since I've been in the public schools, I know what students are doing in America.
Yeah.
I would say that up until 5th grade, it's more about simple melodies, being able to tell what we call the diatonic scale, the do, re, fa, sol, la, ti, do.
Yeah.
In middle school and high school, choral teachers would use solfa as warm-ups for their choir rehearsals, and they might do more what I would call accidentals, using sharps and flats and understanding the relationships between key signatures. So, but I feel like that is more formal music lessons. I feel
Right.
like a home
Like a formal
can get
choir,
that.
you would be in middle school. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
but I mean, if you have older kids, and they've never learned any of this,
Mhm.
definitely bring them in for morning time. It's something you can do as a whole family, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes. So I have, when I first started this project, I think it was 2016, and I obviously geared it towards little ones because mine were little.
Yeah.
and I heard feedback from a lot of homeschool moms like, oh, I like the idea of this just being short and sweet and just being based on interval training and not incorporating folk songs and hymns and everything within that. But you're really like, your audience is young people, you can tell.
Yeah.
No, my personality, I do geared toward the younger ones, but I heard their feedback, and I went back and did unit 1 again, and I recorded those videos again, and on the YouTube it's called unit 1 for older beginners.
Oh, I love
So
that. Okay. That's
I
great stuff.
re-recorded a lot of the same material,
Okay.
and I just made sure that my demeanor
Is
was
it like,
something that
hey, boys
wouldn't
and
annoy
girls?
a 13-year-old. Yeah, exactly. So
But that's great. Yeah, I didn't know that. So that's great if someone has an older
yeah,
child and they want to kind of incorporate that. So what do you think are the benefits, not just from like a music perspective, just but like academically or as a whole person from incorporating?
academically, I would say like that spatial reasoning, and the same reason I think piano lessons are wonderful. So I teach private piano lessons as well, and music reading is really good for the brain.
Oh, yeah.
So you have that that relationship between what your eyes are taking in, like when we're talking about sight reading, what your eyes are taking in, relating it to your brain, and for the piano coming out your fingers,
Yeah.
for the vocalist coming out with your singing. But I do make my piano students sing as well, because I think that inner ear understanding is really
Yeah.
good for spatial reasoning and for logic. Math, rhythm is math. So I teach rhythm concepts within, like I have these rhythm flashcards, which are really good. And so I always suggest that as well to any of your children that might be reluctant singers. You can still use the program to work on rhythm and to understand rhythm, which is great for math.
Yeah. And would this have been something that like the governesses that Charlotte Mason were training at her school, they would have been
Yeah, they had,
familiar with this?
from my research, it was a trained person leading the classes. Yeah.
But I just meant like, would they have grown up doing this? Would this be something that's culturally like kind of like, oh yeah, we know what that is, we do this, and or was
I
it
think
more
so.
specific? Okay. I should know. I knew
Yeah.
in Victorian times singing was definitely more
Right.
of a trained art and something that people would be trained in as they grew up,
Yes.
as opposed to
Yeah.
it is now. Either like you're born with it, we might put you in some lessons, or
Right.
like you're saying,
Yeah.
like music education once a week in a public school setting, but that's still not necessarily focusing on singing.
Right. Now, I think that times have definitely changed since then as far as what the common public would know and be educated in. But what's not changed is that even within her schools, the PNEU, it was a trained teacher teaching the music classes and not just something that was led on the mothers to take it on. Like I've researched a little bit of the like mothers, what was it called? The Mothers University or something. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, yes, right. The mothers
The
had their own
co-
program
like
to go through.
the
Yeah.
correspondence. So she
Yeah.
did have like a correspondence curriculum for mothers to
Yeah.
teach their children at home. But I don't know if Solfa was included in that or if it was just folk songs that were used in the correspondence courses.
Okay, so that book that you're referring to, that was in the programs for the mothers to try to use at home.
Oh, so the mothers did use tonic Solfa.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But originally it was training these governesses to go do it. And I just didn't know if that would be something that like, they would be like, oh yeah, I already know this. Like people just grew up learning this at that time.
Yeah, they might already know it, but it would still maybe take some understanding of how to teach it. And how to,
right. But it's just it was more common, I think, to sing. It was like entertainment.
Yes.
And I'm just going by
yeah, like even
books, but
right. Yeah, we didn't have back then, they didn't have the screens to distract from
Spotify to listen to, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna all sing together. But I think it's I still wish I could sing, and even not like I'm gonna go up on stage and have a rock concert. Of course, there's this little part of it, which is I was a rock and roll singer, but other than that dream, to just be able to like sing at church in my seat and feel comfortable that people around me aren't like cringing, And so I think that that's a gift that we can give our children, is just being able to hear the notes, sing well enough that when they're singing around other people,
right,
they can carry a tune.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's definitely a part of the human condition, I think, to be able to be musical.
Yes.
And use those gifts that God has given us. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I did read an article that was talking about dementia patients and teaching them how to play a musical instrument actually grew new brain cells. It didn't heal the ones that were already damaged, but they were growing more brain cells at a higher rate than they were before. Isn't that amazing? And so you're very proud of me. Tomorrow is my first guitar lesson.
Hey, good for you. That's wonderful.
We'll see. I won't say anything, but I'm like, okay, I'm gonna increase some brain cells.
Yes. Well, there's I think that and I just recently read something about we don't do things because we need to be the best at it. Like some things like painting. I mean, I took up watercolors just a couple of years ago and I never did because I thought, oh, I'm not good at that. And so I never attempted. but through a Charlotte Mason education. And I think, you know, there's value to all of these avenues of who a person is and in the arts. And so I took up watercolors, and just a little bit every week. I was like, oh, wow, I can actually do this. And I feel like the same
Wow.
thing is for music. Even if you're not aspiring to be the next person on the Billboard Top 100 or performer at the Carnegie Hall, but we can do this because it enriches our soul.
Yeah, and that's such a great way to put it. Like, you know, we're not just making sure everybody knows their math facts and that they can read XYZ. You know, we are educating a whole person, and that means how to grow their soul. And that's through the beautiful music and the artwork like you're talking about. And and I think it's great that your kids are seeing you try new things and learn skills that you don't have and go, okay, well, I don't really know how to do brush drawing either, but we're going to try it. And there's beauty and it enriches our lives, right? And some people are like, well, that's a waste of time, right? You know, 20 minutes a week, let's say you do 10-minute music Solfa lesson twice a week, it's 20 minutes. It's nothing. I mean, think about it.
I scroll on my phone for 20 minutes.
I scroll way longer than that, right? Or we're watching TV way more than that, you know.
Yeah.
But just the gift that you're giving them in that short little period of time, and how it does will enrich their personhood. And again, like with everything with Charmaine, it's not something you're going to see right away. So your kids might be like, oh my gosh, I love this. This is the best thing ever. Thank you, Mom, for teaching us this. Maybe if your kids aren't like mine, but you know, it's kind of changing their appetite, especially I think too. The music we listen to now is so different.
Right.
And, you know, learning about these composers and things that music was like, we never even heard anything like this in our lives, Mom.
Yeah. I love the connections that makes. I've seen it, you know, since I've been homeschooling and implementing composer study and Solfa and all these things that my kids will just out of the blue connect it to something that they had learned. And I think,
I love it when my kids like listen to a commercial and they're like, Mom, isn't that Vivaldi? What is it?
Yes, I love that. Those moments are so sweet. Yes.
Well, do you have any final encouragement for a parent who is kind of intimidated? Maybe they don't have musical background, or maybe they're like me who can't sing. And they're like, how in the world am I supposed to teach this and do this with my children? Is it really worth my time?
I think that it is worth your time. But like I said, there is no Charlotte Mason police. So if you try it and you don't like it, I think that's, you know, that's totally up to the parent. And but I wanted to make something that was easy. Like, I'm not asking you to devote 30 minutes of your week or anything. And the principles that
I would never be able to do that. Like if I had to read that book and try to figure out how to teach it to my kids, that would never happen.
So try it for a little while and see if it's something that your children enjoy and want to pursue. And then look at, I personally think piano lessons are the best. So if you can afford piano lessons with a teacher, check and see if the teacher incorporates some solfa within the piano lessons. I know that Hoffman online, the piano lessons online, he uses solfege as well in some of his lessons. So when it comes to music theory, I do think that piano lessons are wonderful. And especially if you have older beginners, instead of doing my solfa lessons, if you can get them piano lessons, I think that's wonderful, because that really does teach you those principles of music theory, which is what Charlotte Mason wanted the children to be able to do through their solfa lessons. And then with younger students, if you can't do solfa, at least do folk songs and hymns with them and singing games. So like in my own classroom, if I were doing a 30-minute lesson with the students, we would warm up with some rhythms. We would warm up with some hand signs, warming our voices up. And then I loved to give them a piece of music that they had to figure out what was the rhythm. They had to figure out what was the melody with just the S and M listed on it. And after we decoded everything, which is a big part of the Kadai training, when we decoded it, we would put the words to it of what the actual song was, and we would play a game with it because I just love games. And so I tried to make everything a game in my classroom. So those things, it's like an onion, just peeling layer after layer. And Solfa is just one of those layers in a music education that I think benefits the whole person.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. I think people can kind of assume that, okay, that was, we do this 10-minute Solfa lesson and we listen to some composers and maybe focus on him, and then that's all there is. But Charlotte Mason had more to it than that. That's what you're kind of saying. Am I right?
I think, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And wanting them to kind of delve deeper into the theory and observation. And
yes.
And you said like telling back.
Yeah. So if they had, let me see, like another thing like this. So a flashcard like this, if you're looking for me left to right, is this, and this. I think it's same on the screen. So I see this little S right here stands for so. And so I know it's just so and me notes, but it doesn't start on so, it actually starts on me. So I can think so, me, I can start here, me, so. And exercises like that, they're training your eyes, training your brain.
Yeah.
Like I said, that spatial awareness of the development in the brain. It's really good.
What did you mean by telling back? Like that to me sounds like narration. So can you narrate a piece of music?
Well, yeah, in your own words.
Yeah.
I think I would do that maybe more with like listening to a composer, like their song, and think, oh, what did I like imagine in my mind while I was listening to that music?
I assume
I would think Solfa is more dictation. It's more,
okay.
You are looking at something and then giving it exactly
back.
Yeah. I wouldn't really
I just wanted to clarify that. Okay. That helps.
With the Solfa skills, I don't really think that it's up to interpretation. Like it's either
when you said that, I wanted to clarify
or not.
Solfa is more dictation. You're repeating back exactly. But listening to him or a piece of composition, right? You can tell back in your own words what you heard, what the rhythm was, and that. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I just want to clarify. When I hear tell back, I automatically think narration in my brain.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good to clarify that.
I've been trained.
Yeah.
So where can people go to find some of these amazing free resources that you graciously have blessed the Charlotte Mason community with?
So all of the videos are on YouTube, so you can watch them on YouTube, but I actually put a site together so that it's organized and you can see Unit 1, these are the concepts that we're learning, and these are the resources that you can download that are specific to that learning. And I also found a really great website called Musicator, which uses Musicator. It's MUSICATOR.
Okay.
And it has some really neat listening activities that you would do using solfege. And so I made a video of myself walking someone through that website, because if you just go to the website, I actually don't know if very many people from the United States use it, because there are all these exercises like with Russian, what is the Russian alphabet called? Cyrillic alphabet. So okay, I don't even know what that says.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a website used for many people in America, but it's really, really cool. And so I made a video of myself walking a parent through that website so you can see how
that would be something you would kind of use for review once they have the skills.
Yes, exactly. Like you can watch my Unit 1 videos, understand what am I trying to teach the student, and then use the flashcards, use the Musicator examples within that unit. And you can also take live classes from me as well.
I was just thinking that like COVID really blessed music education, that you don't have to haul. I mean, I remember when my kids were little, hauling all the little ones to piano lessons and like waiting in the car with everybody, like nowadays you don't have to do that. It's awesome.
Yeah. So I do offer live in-person classes, and I have that on the Solfa website as well. It's through the Charlotte Mason Co-op at Charlotte Mason Plenary. So you'll have to register in time, like, because all the classes are scheduled. So
because they're live.
yeah, yes, 'cause they're live, exactly.
That's so great. Well, thank you so much for kind of explaining this and
Thank you, Julie.
breaking it down. It sounds very doable. I was very blessed that with some of my kids, the church choir that we're in taught Solfa.
Yes.
Was like, check.
Me too. I have my kids in a choir, and the choir director uses Solfesh. So I'm like, great, I don't have to do it.
But I did enjoy it before we got in that when they were younger, just like the listening and like some of the little games and things that were on some of the YouTube channels. Just it was just sweet, And I remember those funny little songs and things, and but there are resources too, and like our church choir was free, so I was like, yes,
that's wonderful. Yeah,
but it's that experience too that it was really beneficial for me.
And I would say too, I would love for my resources to be helpful to because there's plenty of musicians that are watching this podcast or listening that already know about music. And you can take the resources that I have on the website and start your own group, go through solfege lessons with some other homeschoolers of moms who would be like, oh, I really need somebody else to teach this.
Great
and
idea.
and help build your community that way too.
Yeah, that'd be great. And it's fun. It's more fun to do it, with other people too.
Yes.
But also I don't feel like you have to have a music background to teach it. You can do it with the resources that you have.
Yes.
It's called push play.
Yes, exactly. And that was my passion. My passion was, okay, I have this knowledge. I want to give it to people who don't, and just, want to push play, want to use that, and they can spread the feast for their children.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much for your work and doing that. And thank you for coming on and talking to us today. And we'll have all those links in the show notes so you can get these resources and kind of try it with your family, hopefully. So
Happy
thank
singing.
you.
I've got to end it just like I do a lot of my classes.
Okay.
And you have to sing.
Oh,
Goodbye.
Because I will scare people.
All right, see you next time. Thank you, Julie.